Hello, everyone, and welcome to Mind Your Mental. Just a reminder that this podcast is not meant to be a substitute for a relationship with a licensed mental health professional. I know they are hard to find, and I get that. I have a bunch of resources on my website if you need them, but I am not your clinician. I am a psychologist, but I am not your psychologist. So if you need any specific help, please look for the help of a licensed mental health professional. Learn all you can learn from the podcast. Enjoy the episode. All right, everyone, welcome again to Mind Your Mental. Today we have the amazing Angelica Ross, who is an award-winning and Emmy-nominated actress, producer, writer, human rights advocate, singer-songwriter. You may recognize her from many shows such as Pose, American Horror Story, Broadway Chicago. The list goes on and on. Her own podcast, No Opportunity Wasted. She's also the founder of TransTech, an incubator for LGBTQIA plus talent from marginalized communities, and is the president of Miss Ross Incorporated. Thank you so much for joining me today, Angelica. How you doing today?
I am doing so well today. I'm feeling blessed. I'm feeling balanced. I'm feeling on purpose. With so much going on in the world, we could feel a lot of feelings and emotions, and I do feel all the feelings and emotions. Yeah. But right now, I'm feeling amazing.
I love that.
I'm glad to be here with you right now.
Thank you. I love that, the whole aspect of on purpose, because I don't remember who I heard say it. It might have been my mom. It might have been some other like strong Black woman in my mind. But they said, have a good day on purpose. Make it a point to do that. Because I used to have this tendency to turn like a bad moment into a bad day and really like simmer in that. And I like the aspect of you sharing, starting off with, I'm doing this on purpose. Because it is, you can still be present and be aware of all the things happening in the world and still make it a point to be purposeful in the energy that you're putting out too. So I love that.
Absolutely.
I love that. So I want to talk about advocacy. I want to talk about TransTech. So I just wanted to start off with talking about what is your relationship?
I have a growing relationship with therapy. And the reason why I say growing is because I'm paying for therapy that I'm not exactly using as much as I probably should be. Like I pay for Talkspace. And what I love about like the Talkspace is that it's at my fingertips. The issue sometimes is that my life gets so out of control schedule wise that I have a heart, and this is actually my thing. I think my thing that I'm working on right now is learning
everyone, just
when
a
to reach
reminder
out.
That Mind Your Mental is not just a podcast. It is also a amazing community, if I do say so myself. It's phenomenal. I mean, you get more access to me. What more could you want in this life? So if you want to join the community, if you're not already on the community, go to my social media. My social media is the same, Raquel Martin, PhD, and DM me the word community so you can get details on joining this amazing flipping community. You get more access to me, y'all. Like, I'm a delight. All right. Hope to see you there.
Learning how to reach out. And so what I love is great about with the virtual stuff is it really is up to me to reach out. And when they do send messages, but it's your phone. It's like a notification like anything else. So I can ignore it. But I am working on having a more consistent relationship with therapy. But I will say for me, it's not that I say that I don't need therapy, but it is a situation where because I use my Buddhist practice as a daily sort of spiritual mental check-in and very much clarifying, like before spirituality was something else before. It was something I believed in, you believed in, I have faith in or whatever. But through this practice and being able to look at myself in the mirror every day, and even when I'm not practicing, it is this thing where I can't shut it off. So I know that I'm not looking in the mirror. And it's just something that is telling me why you haven't been looking in this mirror. And so it reflects to me sometimes when I'm being avoidant and when I'm doing certain things. So I'm extremely conscious around a lot of things that I do, but I need to definitely strengthen my relationship with therapy because I'm struggling with this untreated ADHD. I have talked about this with my therapist. We have sort of like diagnosed in the area of that. And I've even tried the medication, different versions of the medication. And my experience was that I had a very good experience, but to someone like me who's maybe hard on themselves or just whatever, I just couldn't understand why I was so functional with this drug and couldn't have that kind of clarity without it. And what was insane for me is that, so I've been working off medication for years to try to get to the place that I think that medication gets me to. I have not been successful. My ADHD definitely still exhausts me, but it does from day to day feel like a interesting adventure where if I'm just super conscious, I can see it working and how my attention's trying to pull me in different directions. Or if I'm really focusing in on something that, why am I focusing on stacking these pennies or whatever it is that I might be doing that's not important in that moment? With more awareness, I'm able to address it. But I think I'm getting to a place where I might want to have some assistance with medication. Yeah. But for me, it's not a fast and hard situation. It's very much a conversation that I'm open to.
Yeah, and it's tough right now because the one of the primary medications for attention deficit hyperactivity disorder is Vyvanse, and there's a shortage. And a lot of the people I follow on social media are clinicians, and a good chunk of them have ADHD. And they're talking about it from the perspective of talking to their patients about dealing with the shortage and the fact that they just and I'm also having a struggle with getting my own medication, changing their caseloads for the day. Because I genuinely cannot be present as your psychologist because without the medication, I got to tap out at 2 or I'm not going to be able to be present. So it's so interesting to see it not only from the aspect of being a clinician, but most of the clinicians I know have ADHD. So they're struggling with it as for their clients. I'm trying to get my client a hookup. I'm trying to get my own hookup because I can't, because there's a shortage right now.
Wow. Yeah. And I've gone from the more intense when they really were figuring out the medication to things like, I think it was Concerta is one that I was doing at one point. Yeah. And it's just so odd for me because I don't know what to do with my mixed feelings of how I really felt amazing on the medication because I was getting things done in a way that just is so interesting. Because when we talk about in this country, medication and therapy and things like that, I'm really, as I use my platform to advocate for various things, one of the things that I'm trying to do is be more transparent about my own mental health journey, because I hate that so many people are criminalized for trying to self-medicate or trying to find their own balance to these things, especially when the biggest gang that we have to face is the pharmaceutical industry and the prices that we have to pay to have access to all of these things. So one thing that I learned through my own medication journey was that as someone who smoking weed, I thought was something that addressed my anxiety, which it did and does in certain ways. But what I found out was I was treating layers of things. So it was I actually didn't really have anxiety. It's the ADHD, because when I am actually handling things in a way that doesn't make me feel bad about the fact that I am all over the place, and I have this kind of organization, when I was on the medication, I had zero anxiety. And I almost did not even want to smoke weed because it slowed me down. It just did not vibe with where I was wanting to place my attention. Whereas with just access to marijuana, it's something I use to slow down my brain so that I can catch the train a little easier that I'm dealing with. So for me, I would love for our country to, across the board, decriminalize all drugs, first of all. Yeah. Because I think that all of it is a health issue, medical issue, and not a criminal issue. But especially when it comes to marijuana and things like that, where mostly white people are standing the chance to get rich and build businesses off of, while Black bodies are still locked up for it. I'd like to see our corner connoisseurs taking up places in the market and being able to really tell folks, from glaucoma to anxiety to eating appetite issues, of what exactly they might need and how to use it. So I'm still struggling with that, but as I struggle, I want to be transparent so that I can almost model what it looks like to just figure it out on your own, but not be criminalized for it.
Yeah.
Try not to be criminalized for it.
Yeah, I don't think enough people talk about the cultural aspect of the way that substances are looked at. Like people talk about to a certain extent, but I don't even think we're talking and discussing it enough in terms of not only crime, like not even crime, not only in terms of policing individuals, but also in terms of the financial aspect, right? Because I always feel as though hundreds of thousands of Black and brown bodies are in jail for weed, while hundreds of thousands of European American bodies are getting rich off of THC. And or the aspect of people really denying the indigenous process of using like hallucinogens. That used to be something that people would legit get hospitalized for or criminalized for. And now we have documentaries on it on Netflix. And now people are like, oh, I took my journey. And now it's doing that whole culture creep. And I don't think people...
Even like mushrooms now, you're seeing that it's getting so commercialized in a way where white people are really getting in on
and getting money off it. That's the thing that cracks me up is, okay. So my brother over here is in jail for weed. But now we can make money off of edibles. Oh, individuals who this is indigenous to their culture and heritage. This is who they are. They're getting told that they're drug addicts. They need to be dealing with substance abuse. But now they're having documentaries about the utility of it. You have authors and stuff talking about it. And I'm like, this is just another example of monetizing off of another culture's history also. And it doesn't even address the aspect of the pain that it's caused this community cultural practices. It always cracks me up. Oh yeah, you're getting rich off of THC. I would love to talk about the people who are in jail for weed though. I mean, I would love to talk about that. Mean,
especially like when I saw John Boehner, when I saw Republican former Speaker of the House, John Boehner, leave his position and get into investing in medical marijuana, I'm like, yo, what are y'all really doing? Yeah. What are we really doing here?
Yeah, I feel like...
But, like I said, I have released myself. Part of what's really helpful for my mental health is I've really release myself from being beholden to these systems that really weren't built with me in mind in the first place. Yeah. So especially as a trans person, when I went to changing my name on my legal documents on my ID and things or it wasn't even my name. When I first went to change my gender marker from male to female, I was so nervous about just checking that box because of the language around fraud when you're doing this. And then I literally said to myself, Angelica, you are not a fraud. The system is a fraud. And literally, I just repeat that to myself. And that's when I realized that I am justified in taking the actions and navigating things the way that I have to navigate them. Because in an anti-trans, anti-Black society, what do I have but to make it up?
Anti-woman. Yeah, anti-woman society
yes.
too. Yeah,
absolutely, absolutely, yes.
Yeah, I love the fact that you mentioned the aspect of it being justified because for many of my patients who are having difficulty acknowledging their emotions to themselves because they don't feel like they have the right to feel that way. I'm like, every time you say an emotion, I want you to put justified in front of it because I need you to tell yourself. That this isn't you feel overwhelmed because this is overwhelming. You feel upset because you're having a justified reaction to this environment, even when it comes to this whole aspect of imposter phenomenon. I'm just like, well, I want you to be aware, like, yes, have the name for it, but also realize doing everything in its power overtly and covertly to make me feel like I am an imposter. So when you even talk about that, like people talk about they'll put it on themselves. And I'm like, oh, I feel like you're having a justified reaction to an oppressive environment. So when you say justified reaction to an oppressive environment, do you think you need to change or you think you need to address the environment? The environment, right? That's when people talk about stuff like that, I'm like, all right, we're going to frame this though, because it's just, you're in an environment that overtly and covertly gives you messages that you don't belong in order to be able to seen as human or professional. You need to align yourself with these European American patriarchal standards. Why would you ever feel like you belong in that environment? Like you tell me why you would feel like.
Well, a lot of it has to do with the fact that we have grown up in a world that has allowed religion to claim dominion over definition. Like literally all definitions of love, definitions of spirituality, definitions of holy, of not holy, of sanctified, of moral and unmoral, of valid or not valid, of valuable and unvaluable, of sinful and not sinful, of devilish, and all these different things, and has created such a world of confusion for folks, where Jesus talks about in one passage, look at the field of lilies and how they grow, and basically that they're not worried about all these other things, that they just are what they are and they grow. And so in Buddhism, what thankfully I was able to discover was it's impossible, absolutely impossible for me to be an imposter of me. I don't experience imposter syndrome because I know that there's only one Angelica Ross.
Yeah.
So what I do know is that when they call for Angelica Ross, I'm her. I am she. I have worked my entire life at being confident in who I am. And so this world and our society works so hard at stealing your confidence. And it's mostly through marketing, because through capitalism, they need to tell you that your life doesn't feel complete without this washer and dryer. Your life doesn't feel complete without these beauty products. It would be better. It would be more valuable if you had these things. And what I love in the world of 10,000 things, in the world of all the phenomena, is I teach people how to anchor themselves in exactly who they are and start to create a curriculum that brings them fully into their own understanding, and then be able to play. Because look, I know that the light hits me a certain way when my blonde hair, when I got the blonde wig on, right?
Yeah.
But you've seen me. You've been on my podcast. You see me all across this internet with no makeup on, with no wig on, with a scarf on, with all kind of things. And I beam. I am beaming from the inside out. And that's because I know that none of these things carry with them my value, that I am the check. I am the value. And I just wish that more people were brought up to believe that about themselves, regardless of how they identify.
I truly love that, because I told you before, my dad is Buddhist. My mom is Christian.
I love that.
Yeah. Yes. And I feel like growing up in that house, my parents are married, growing up in that house, like I've always seen things differently. And even when I'm experiencing a stressor, I'm talking to my mom, I'm talking to my dad, the epitome of like my household is my dad will be like, oh, I'll chant for you. And my mom will be like, I'll pray for you. And either way, like all of that positive energy is coming to me.
You good.
Yeah, I'm good. Like I'm good either way, right? So
they got you covered.
They got me covered. Somebody, I mean, my dad will be like, I'm actually headed to a meeting. Now we gonna.
That's so great.
But
oh my goodness.
That's why when people are, when they look, and it's why I've always looked at like spirituality and religion differently. This is why I grew up with two parents who love me dearly. And let me tell you something. They have a running joke. It's a running joke in my house where if my mom, my dad is, I'm not going to do this. My mom will joke, will be like, all right, well, I'll do so-and-so when you say the prayer at dinner. Okay. When you decide to say the prayer at dinner, that's what I'm going to go clean. That's when I'll clean that grill. Which is basically saying it's not happening, because the same way you're not about to say no prayer at this table is the same way I'm not about to clean that grill. You understand me? It's just so funny because I'd be like, well, that's a no. That's my mom's way of saying no without saying no. Yeah. Okay. Well, when Sunday dinner comes, you want to say the prayer or nah, it's not going to happen. So clean the grill. I ain't. It's just, but when I look at it in terms of spirituality and Christianity and stuff, I grew up when people say even little things like the love being acceptance. And I'm like, well, my love isn't acceptance. It isn't like acceptance, it's celebration. Like my parent, my mom is, listen, Sunday is just another day to go to church. This is not like, oh, well, this is just,
your mom's all through the week.
Honey, well,
I
you
love
going to
it.
keep being bedside Baptist. I'm just saying, Raquel, I'm gonna pray. And I'm like, you should. So, but like I grew up in a house that's just my parents love each other and they know enough about each other and they understand that this is who they are. And it's not about acceptance. It's about celebration. So even when people say stuff like, well, I'll accept that. I'm like, I don't even like that. I'll be real with you. I don't really like that, because I can have somebody on the street accept me. People who love me celebrate me.
Exactly. Exactly. Like I don't need you in my close personal proximity just to accept me, baby.
Accept me. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I love that.
Tolerance is not needed, baby.
Because it is tolerance, right? Like it's when people say the aspect of acceptance, I'm like,
It's actually the other way around. You better be lucky I'm tolerating you.
Because it's tolerance.
You better be lucky I'm tolerating the ignorance. And to be honest, as a Buddhist, I have to constantly remind myself to make room. There are many times that I just want to close myself off from all the foolishness and all the ignorant folks and whatnot. And I know that that's also closing me off from opportunities to show up as a Buddhist in these spaces. Yeah. So I'm working on it, but I still right now am going to be introducing a new thing on my podcast, basically redefining celebrity, where we do a segment where we talk about whether we're blocking or whether we're celebrating a certain celebrity. Because in my Buddhist practice, we have something called the mystic law. And there's this saying to become a celebrity of the mystic law. And basically what the mystic law is just saying that no matter who you are, what kind of life condition you have, that you can become happy. You can develop a life state that is elevated and enlightened and happy. And so what it means to become a celebrity of that is that you become known far and wide from your life story of how you overcame challenges and did certain things and created value in your environment. And so these are the things that we celebrate, not folks that we feel like we have to call child protective services on because they have inappropriate strippers and things like that dancing on their babies and like being homophobic with children who don't even know anything about sexuality yet. I'm talking about that rapper Blueface or one of them, right? That was doing what he was doing at that one time. And so I think right now the people are in a place where they want to, they feel powerless. Yeah. And we've been in a system that has been really tricking people out of their power, really is what it is, because we are more powerful because we actually do control a lot of what's happening with our viewership. If we turn off the TV, all of a sudden there's going to be an issue. The ratings are down.
There's so much power in it. And I find that like my students, I would remind my students, I mean, anytime someone takes a class with me, I'm like, just a heads up, the activism is implied. I know you thought like in everything. And I'm like, don't let anyone trick y'all to thinking that because you're younger, you don't have a voice. Y'all have more days ahead of you than the people who are telling you that you have nothing to say. Absolutely. And I always say, don't let people, you're an agent of change. Like I even give the example of TikTok. I'm like, do you know how much you guys' little app has changed the trajectory of what is done? I'm like, don't let anyone who's trying to tell you that y'all are not powerful is a dead lie. And if anything, they're letting you know that you are powerful. Like I try to tell them all the time, because I feel like the most marginalized communities, of course, like Black people and children, and don't let you be a Black child. They are going to oppress and I'm just like, they always make it like, oh, well, what are we going to do? You can do whatever, everything.
Well, that's why everything else is a distraction where, you know, again, and this is where I want to point out for folks, distractions are for the easily distracted. So a distraction is not necessarily in and of itself a bad thing. Yeah. Because myself, I need a distraction here or there because I am bearing witness to all of the genocides that are happening around the world. I'm taking a wide open look, sobering look at what is going on, and I'm allowing myself to feel it. But I live again in a practice that says, suffer what there is to suffer and enjoy what there is to enjoy. And so when it comes to a distraction, whether it's a Beyonce album or whether it's whatever else, for me, I have this kind of interesting relationships with folks like that who are that powerful. But Beyonce is the type of artist that because she focuses so much on her art, it is like no one else. It does reach and empower the activist, empowers us in so many ways. But she herself is not an activist. She herself is not using her platform or her power to call for anything, to change anything in any countries or whatever the case is. And so I think that when it's in the conversation of society, I think there's plenty of room for critique and all these different things. But when we talk about balance, when we talk about grace, when we talk about the fact that any movement is a relay that between generations and between sometimes communities. And so with the relay comes rest. And so there is this kind of cadence for me that goes between activism and rest, education and community, music and dancing, spiritual. It's all of the things. But what I will say is for those who need to be distracted 24/7, you are definitely a part of the problem. That's just my opinion.
When I've talked previously about substance use, and I'm more of an advocate for harm reduction, but when I remember talking to one of my friends, and she had mentioned that she's feeling as though she's been growing apart from one of her people that she's really close with, and she was like, they always have to be on some kind of substance. Like, we could never just hang. There always has to be like a substance involved. Always has to be like this big distractor. And I was like, oh, it sounds like from what you're sharing with me, this isn't session, but it sounds like what you're sharing with me, they're living off of these numbing behaviors. And she was like, well, what do you mean? And I'm like, well, a lot of people talk about fight or flight when it comes to stressors, but there's also freeze. And freeze doesn't have to, it's not solely physically freezing. It is for some people, but it's also engaging in numbing behaviors. And that's going to be anything that takes you out of the reality that you're experiencing, right? So it's like substance use or incredibly risky behaviors or consistent like video game use. And you feel like you can't operate outside of it. And these are numbing behaviors. And when you mention like someone needing the distraction 24/7, that in itself is one of the stress responses. So what what are you running away from? Right. What is the you have to numb the pain or the hurt.
Good vibes only all the time.
And it's just, but that's not even life. Like, you're running from something. That's not life. So when people have to be distracted all the time and people are like, oh, they just like to party. I'm like, it's 7 a.m. on a Tuesday. Oh, what are we doing? What? What's happening?
Listen, live your life. Listen, to each person, live your life, do you, but you know, here's where I like really start to want to have a little bit more accountability is everybody can do whatever they want to do. Yeah. But when you step into the ring of representation, be it political, be it organizational, be it like community leaders, different things like that, like, you can't be claiming to lead spaces and do certain things if you're not willing to do the work to make sure that you're coming to the collective healthy. Like, that you are doing your individual work to come into the collective with clarity instead of more confusion. But I think that we have so many people, just because they have a dang-a-lang through between their legs, that they think that God has ordained them to lead. It's like they dang-a-lang point in the direction, and no, baby, it's pointing us in the wrong direction. You taking us in the wrong direction. And if you do not do the work that allows you to be the kind of leader that looks at not just our children, but our neighborhood's children as ours, as at least as community, as ways in which we can respond to those certain things. And I like I said, you just chilling. You don't want to have no accountability to nothing. You just going to get your 401k working at Amazon or doing whatever it is that you're doing. You're not trying to engage, blah, 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 do you? You know what I'm saying? If that's the best that you think that you can have. But I believe that all of us can engage on a different level. And I just think that it starts with not selling ourselves daily fantasies about being comfortable. Like, life is not supposed to be comfortable all the time.
Yeah. And I think people, when having conversations with people are feeling hopelessness, people are feeling exhausted, people are feeling powerless. And I think anybody can engage. I think you just have to find the way that works for you. Like, everything isn't, I'm like, you can do a march. There are artivists. You can so many ways. Can vote with your feet ways. Of not watch, like you mentioned viewership. You can have things that you don't listen to or that you tune into more. You can share something. You can create a petition. You can go on the Hill. You can write a book. There are so many different ways. And when people state that they find that there's no way to, they feel like there's no purpose in engaging. I find that they just, two things. One, I feel like it's exhausting and it's a very tough feeling. I think sometimes it involves grief, just knowing how much you don't know, or finding out every time you do know something, it's worse than you expected. So there's grief in that. And then you feel powerless. But I always say, well, what do you want to do next? There's grief in so many different aspects. It's okay. I feel, as soon as I hear all of these terrible things, I feel immobilized. Like, I feel overwhelmed with all of these awful things.
But I think that that's an extension to it's an extension and a reflection into what the reality is in their own lives. So I think that it's hard to come to these world issues like the things that are happening in other places and try to grasp an understanding. And it's because they're not aware in the ways in which systemically Black communities are experiencing violence, systemic violence. So just in the same ways that they don't care about the kids in the Congo or in Gaza, they don't care about them kids in Chicago or Detroit or any of these other places. They don't have clean drinking water still in Detroit. Still, they still don't have. We still don't have appropriate schooling. We don't have the appropriate health care. Mortality rates are high for Black women when giving birth. There's are we on Zoom? What is it? There are so many situations where the ways in which America enforces its imperialist violence on the rest of the world is the same ways in which we are experiencing it here. And so many people feel like they don't have a choice, like they're helpless. Well, y'all, we got these 2 people to vote for. What else is we gonna do? And now listen, I'm not trying to stir nothing up right now, but what I'm saying is listen to that. Listen. You only have 2 choices. These are our 2 choices. One that's currently in court for all kind of criminal cases. Yeah. And another who is saying, I don't care what y'all saying. I'm sending y'all tax dollars over to war and not to help our own country. And we're being told, so this is the choices y'all got. And the people are being like, well, man, I guess you right. We only got these 2 choices. Listen, I just want y'all to hear that. I'm not even going to push hard on it. I just want you to hear. I just want you to hear this, that we, the people, believe we have no choice. And that's not a good place for democracy to be.
No. I remember.
So I think we can address it in a way that just does not feel defeated and gives up to the status quo. I think it's time for us to flex our power as the people.
And it is a powerlessness, right? I always think of I feel like there was this meme or something, but it's like when you have so many things to do on your list and instead of doing them, you sit down and you take a nap. I feel like a lot of times when I'm listening to people, it's just they feel like they have so many problems or there's so many things that are an issue. So instead of deciding to address one, they decide to address none. And just like like what you mentioned, like it's powerlessness, right? Like that whole aspect of, well, we have no other choice. That's the epitome of powerlessness. That's what that is, feeling I have no choice. My power has been taken from me, right? That's not democracy. It's just not. That's not what it is.
It's not what it is. And it's also just, again, a reflection of how you feel in your own life, of how much choice you feel like you have in your own life as a trans person, as a non-binary person, and as a Black person. I have been in an ongoing development of my relationship to my understanding of my own personal choice, of my own personal power, to say, actually, I don't have to deal with this. Actually, I can remove myself from this. I can move to another state. I can do another job. I can change careers. And so again, when someone sees someone like me leave Hollywood and what that seems like the dream come true for folks, they're not understanding someone that is fully operating in their own personal power and value, that says that check that y'all think that they was giving me, that's not even my highest purpose, value, situation. I can be more, make more, do more outside of Hollywood. So if they're not going to be respectful of who I am and my value and what I bring to the table, because I work and I work hard and I come prepared. So I'm not looking for any handouts. I'm not looking for anybody to treat me like a princess on set and different things, or anything that I'm involved in and do. I show up fully for it.
Yeah. And I mean, you deciding to retire, I think think that hits a lot of people.
I'm not retired. I'm not retired.
Leaving Hollywood.
I got a couple movies that are actually I'm working on right now. I'm filming a movie in September. Okay. I can't talk about but it's a major cast that's in it. I'm filming, and then I'm also starring in a movie that I can't talk about just yet either. But very soon I'll be able to talk about these things. And then what I love about what's happening is people are going to be able to see that I'm doing things on my terms.
Yeah.
I'm working with people who understand exactly what I mean, who don't have to guess what I'm talking about, or who don't feel slighted when I am advocating for equality at all intersections, whether that is confronting patriarchy and misogyny, or whether that is confronting anti-Blackness, or whether that's confronting any of the things. I'm not a party pooper to the people I'm working with. Yeah. They love knowing that I have a perspective that is going to help us see things a little bit more clearly if we don't already.
Okay, good. Because even when I saw at least 2 articles when Angelica Ross said she's leaving Hollywood, I was like, what?
Yeah, and I kept trying to go back and with these journalists and even clarify. And I kept saying in the interviews with them, I was like, please communicate that I'm telling you that Hollywood as a concept, as a archetype, is sick.
I wonder and how y'all
and needs healing.
Grow there, because it doesn't seem like a real place.
Think about
sometimes.
The things that's happening with Diddy. Yeah. Think about Diddy and Cassie, but those are not unique stories.
Yeah.
It's so much going on, and in order to get to a certain level, you got to be the type of person who's willing to look the other way. You got to be the type of person that's willing to be mum's the word, or just be like, well, that's not my business, or that don't have nothing to do with me, and blah, blah, blah. And it's a lot of people like that. And once I started finding that out, I just actually started separating myself from folks. I don't need to be associated with folks just cause so I can name drop. No, thank you. Yeah. And what I realize is that there are a lot of celebrities who want to use my name to name drop so that they can seem like they in the know when it comes to various things of activism. But unless they're willing to do the work and be in real community with me, I'm calling BS. I'm calling them out on their performativeness of wanting to be associated with things and not really getting mixy with it and getting in the mix with us.
Yeah, I appreciate the calling out of that. Personally, but I can't let you go without talking about TransTech, because I really want more on this. But TransTech is a nonprofit organization of tech professionals dedicated to providing resources and access to the LGBTQ plus community through job training, workshops, programs, and events. And I think the coolest thing about this is that your journey with
it really is not. It's not as much of a feat as it sounds like.
Okay, hold on. No. Okay, let's just take a second. No, we're not doing that. Teaching yourself anything is a feat. Yeah. So I'm gonna have to cut that off right there. So yeah, it is.
Well, okay. So what I will say is the reason why I don't see it that way as much is because when it comes to coding, when I realized that it was just a language. So it's like Spanish, English, anything else, it's a language. And so once you learn pieces of the language and know like how to use a verb or how to use this, then it just becomes super simple. So like with things like CSS, I keep doing that though. With things like CSS, when you realize that there's a 6-digit number code that is associated, then you're like, oh, okay, so 6 zeros is black and 6 Fs is white. And so then you start to learn various things in between there. I can't tell you the colors just by the code numbers like that.
I already am confused. Let me say, that's what I'm saying. Don't say it's not a language. Oh yeah, everything's a different language. I'm not a polyglot. You know what I'm saying?
And so like when you know that you got to create a bracket to start that conversation. So I'm like, okay, I'll create a bracket and I'll do like IMG SRC, which is basically image source equals to go to an image. Well, okay, then I'm going to copy that link to that image and I can put it into HTML to make it show up somewhere without me actually having to upload the image somewhere. So I realized when I started...
Y'all believe she tried to act like this wasn't because how many of us were just like, right.
Well, I would say that HTML, I'm not explaining it well, but like HTML and CSS are really simple languages to learn. And so what I did was I went to, it was called lynda.com at the time, but they got bought out by, first I think it was Microsoft and then LinkedIn. So now it's called LinkedIn Learning. So all of those videos that are on LinkedIn, I started there doing HTML and CSS, and I just taught myself how to do that. And for me, what the lucky thing was, and I just have to address this, not that, but I'm just going to say it anyway. Within community, sometimes there's very much like a crabs in a barrel or scarcity mindset when it comes to things. And so I've had to deal with challenges and deal with people in community who have tried to accuse me of co-opting or stealing their ideas when it comes to trans tech. And I won't say that specific person or a specific organization. But what I will say is that we have such an experience that we don't know each other. We don't know our community well enough to validate the experiences that people have outside of community and outside of each other. We didn't always know each other. We weren't always connected with each other. So I didn't know you. I didn't know about your organization when I was taking off my clothes for the internet. I didn't know you then when I was learning to then stop taking my clothes off and to learn to run the website so that I could stop doing sex work and do the tech part first. Then I had an aha moment when I said, oh, I ran a business called My Zen Studios. And at first I spelled it MAIZEN Studios. And it was loosely like a spinoff off this Japanese word Kaizen, Kaizen, which means continual growth. And so I started this company, My Zen Studios, and I ran it for 10 years. And I did graphic design for Cedric the Entertainer, for Ludacris, for various folks, and they never knew who I was, never knew I was trans, but I designed their backstage passes. I did website work for companies in London and all these different places. And what I realized was I could work and make money without people needing to know that I was trans or needing to know much about me. And so I had done a lot of community work for a while, and I had got a job. Somebody sent me a job listing to be an employment coordinator for the Trans Life Center in Chicago. This was back in 2011. 2011 was when I interviewed. And so who were coming out of talking about basic things. But what I realized with the organization I was working with, they were like farming people into restaurant work where they could get them like a safety and sanitation license or something that they could go work in a kitchen. And I was trying to say, well, hey, I come from doing web work and whatever. I think we could teach them tech skills. And the company that I was working for said that was over the heads of the people that we were serving, that they wouldn't be able to understand it. And I felt like that they were underestimating folks.
Sounds like it.
And so I basically used that job to still try to teach my company tech skills. I was bringing computers to work that were unauthorized. They were taking my computers from me. I was doing programming where I was Zooming and Skyping in Laverne Cox and Gina Rosero to these homeless folks and folks who are transient to be able to see trans people and other people doing other things. And I was met with so much resistance. That is why I ended up quitting that job and basically starting TransTech from scratch. But what I was doing, and everybody kept telling me, well, I don't understand your business model. I don't know what you mean. And so for the longest time, I was trying to make people understand that I was trying to create something that mimicked the beauty school model, because I went to beauty school. And what I learned there was that people were willing to pay for perms or relaxers or get their hair done at a cheaper rate, knowing that they were working with people who were still learning. And so I tried to create an environment where people were building websites or doing graphic design or doing different things at discounted rates. But the clients knew that these were not only trans people and queer people that they were hiring, but also people who were still learning. And so this all came out of me trying to get out of sex work myself, finding a solution for myself that then ended up working for me. And then me trying to turn that into a blueprint to work for other people and to say, hey, you don't even need to do coding. You can be a beauty influencer on YouTube as long as let's talk about social media monetization. Let's talk about cameras and lights. Let's talk about product reviews. Let's talk about what is underneath the hood of being that kind of beauty influencer and the technology that you need that will be the catalyst for that. But coding is not everything when I say tech. Matter of fact, you can be a part of a whole tech company and not even know nothing about tech, but you know something about project management. So for me, it was about illuminating my own path that ended up illuminating the path for others. And unfortunately, doing that, people tried to constantly either take shine for me or tell me that folks have not supported me, or it might be that because of the way I look and I have cis assumed privilege, I have various privileges, folks think that I haven't struggled for what I have built. And because I am Buddhist, because I have now gotten beyond my ego in certain ways,
not all of them. I knew that's what you were about to say. Not all of them.
So don't catch me on the wrong day. But I've gotten past it to a place where I actually have started to really embrace those who have misunderstood me, especially those in community who have got me wrong, who got me effed up in the first place. And I'm at least still leaving the door open for them to finally realize that I've been consistent. I've been exactly who I said I am. When it comes to TransTech, I have not had a payday from that. We finally have an executive director who has been running TransTech for the past 3 years now, I think has been, and they are salaried. They are paid to do the job. But over the 15 years that we've been doing, 10 years, we had our 10-year anniversary with TransTech because it was 2014 to 2024. Mm-hmm. But that whole time I have volunteered. Mm-hmm. And so everything that I've done has shown folks that I work in a way in which my cup overfloweth. I'm not coming from an empty cup. And if I do find out that my cup is empty ever again, I will take a pause and I will go work on refilling my cup first before I can return to community.
Yeah. I mean, nothing if not consistent. Hitting 10 years, that sounds like first of all, that's an amazing milestone. Are there any other milestones you are incredibly proud of when it comes to TransTech? Because you're doing so much.
Oh, yes. I mean, literally our partnerships with Google that have helped our members get Google certifications in various skills. Our partnerships with the Linux Foundation that has also helped to create certifications with folks. Our partnerships with Masterclass. What I love about Masterclass is that, again, it helps to reinforce our narrative that it's not just about coding. Yeah. There's so many different things that you can become an authority in. So our partnership with Career Circle, we have so many growing partnerships. Our partnership with Hinge, like we had this partnership with the Hinge dating app where they took our members in New York and they paid them well. I believe it was something like $75 an hour. They paid them well to work on basically making the app more inclusive. And so when we see that there are corporations willing to do the work and not just sell to us, but include us into the creation of things, I think that is what I've been most proud of, as well as sort of like what I've been really, really proud of with TransTech is being affirmed in my leadership. It's not always been easy. I haven't even always been the best and greatest leader. And that many times that's been because I've been afraid to say the things sometimes to my community members or to people that needs to be said. But I've gotten to the point where I, like, in a playful way, invoke the spirit of Miranda Priestley from Devil Wears Prada, because one thing that I loved about her character, and I felt that she was so misunderstood, is just as a woman, how the hell do you think she got to where she got to?
Listen,
she couldn't have got there by being late. She couldn't have got there by not knowing what you're supposed to know in the room. So why would I make room for you to be ignorant at this level and at this space? So what I say is this: I create space and an incubator space for TransTech for people to go to the gym where they're not being judged about what muscle they're trying to strengthen and work on. But then I also create other opportunities that once you feel like you're ready to step into the ring, now, sweetie, I'm going to expect you to be the best, because I'm not just calling on you because you're trans. That's not what I do here. I love trans people. I love queer people, but I like working with the best. Yeah. And so I want you to be the best trans person at the job, not just trans. So what I love is that I've been able to be this voice of accountability, both for my community that wants to take on different opportunities. And I have to say to them, are you ready? Because luck is when preparation meets opportunity. Are you prepared for this opportunity? And if not, let's talk about that honestly and get you prepared. And on the other side, I get to talk to companies and organizations and say, but are you prepared? Are you prepared to be truly successful? Are you prepared to be the kind of company that takes responsibility for their carbon footprint? Are you the type of company that wants to actually create pipelines to the communities that you want to sell to? So for me, as I go into even to politics and do certain things, like I'm taking the conversation of tech into a space where I understand cybersecurity. And I'm trying to now get a lot of people into cybersecurity jobs, because there's so many openings in jobs in cybersecurity. And if you are someone who has been a healthcare administrator, HR, doing things like that, baby, you can do cybersecurity. It ain't about coding. It's just about protocol.
Yeah.
So just know you could be making six figures doing cybersecurity. I need y'all to hear me out. If I am getting my tail up and going to get certified in cybersecurity, you best believe I know where the money at. Yeah. So you better follow me over there. And not to mention, then when I go into politics, now I'm calling y'all fully out, because you're not trying to buy TikTok to keep America safe. You're trying to buy TikTok to create a further monopoly that America has had when they've been in bed with companies like Meta, and not have called Meta out on the monopoly that they've created or the antitrust laws that they're regulations that they're violating. So I think that we have a lot older generation that is not prepared to lead the more technical world. And I'm about to get in there and do some shake things up a little bit. Shake some stuff
up. Because when I tell you, when Facebook bought Instagram, I felt like I was one of there were people more well-versed, but I was just like, hey, this is a problem.
Yeah, there's a problem.
I like legit was like, this, wait. Is no one concerned?
Well, especially then when it comes to, before we were speaking up about Palestine, when it came to us speaking up on racism, on different things, you would see Black creators were experiencing suppression of their accounts.
Yep.
And white creators were actually co-opting various things that Black creators were doing and getting various opportunities. Engagement levels were way different on those certain things. And now you have where the Human Rights Watch, a whole organization, has written an 81-page report on how Meta has been suppressing basically human rights voices, whether they're talking about genocide or whether they're talking about racism or the patriarchy and misogyny.
I have 720,000 followers on TikTok. Maybe one of my videos will go up over 10K, and I can't use any of the typical buzzwords that I use, which are racism, misogyny, patriarchy, or I have to change my subtitles.
So am I learning that? I'm learning that I'm seeing people in videos are like using alternate words when they're saying certain things.
Yeah,
is that why?
And it's extra work too, because in putting in captions, you have to change the word. Racism has to have the @ sign. Supremacy has to have the @ sign, and you have to do the E symbol, which takes more work to do. And a lot of people are like, I don't even want to talk about it, because now I have to and people will be like, I always get, anytime a video will be something like Goofy or something, those will go bigger. And people will be like, I haven't seen you on my timeline in so long. Where have you been? I said, I post every day. But I've been talking more and more about psychoeducation, and mental health is getting pushed down as well, and activism, and those videos won't make it to you. I make one silly video for every 5 real ones, because it's also supposed to show me.
Yeah, I really think that all this kind of like advice that Meta's trying to give on stepping your game up and all this, I'm real. Like, y'all are gaslighting. Stop with this, because listen, I'm looking at my metrics and it's telling me that I've reached almost 1 million, a million accounts, and that only almost, I think they said 16% of that is my followers.
Are your followers.
Are my followers. So you're telling me that I'm posting things that are reaching millions of people, but not the people who actually push the follow button to follow me? You got me messed up. You gaslighting the wrong girl.
Every time I see those little videos, I did a stitch of it one. This audio was going viral. One time I was like, that's not for you. If you look like me, that's not for you. Okay? Let me tell you, it's not, you going to use that same audio and be mad at yourself. Don't be mad at yourself. Be mad at, I'm sorry to tell you. You know what I'm saying? And it does.
We have to find, we have to find a way, and it's fine. AI is here to stay.
Yeah.
And as Black people, we have to find ways to make the technology work for us. And I think one of the things that we really witnessed was how useful Twitter was for us initially, whether it was Black Twitter, whether it was organizing, and then Elon Musk came and ended all of that. So what I think that only told us was that, okay, that was the platform. But what really the magic was how we used it. Yeah. And so we need to just go back to creating private channels, group chats, different things that aren't accessible to the mainstream. Of course, America's big brother is always watching, you know what I'm saying? But the thing is that at least I'm not giving my game plan out to racist people on Twitter who are trying to basically use our language and our strategies against us.
Yeah, after the book, Let This Radicalize You, the one I said,
Let This Radicalize You,
the one I was like, oh, I think you would like this book. That was one of the things they mentioned a lot.
I haven't started. They
mentioned a lot about, okay, so what are y'all gonna do when they shut it down? Because the things are getting shut down, right? Like the things that we're advocating for are not going to stop just simply because you can't log into your account. So when we're trying to have these aspects of like organizing in media, we also have to have that plan of, it's not always going to be a hashtag because they are buying these companies and they're taking them over. You also have to do on the ground work. We also have to have not just like we're meeting online, but okay, so this is also, say things get shut down, we meet at this location. We meet at this location in person. I know it's tough, but we got to meet in person because it's really, and that book, like, it was one of my, after the podcast, I was like, yo, I think you'll like this book because it was just very good, tangible. And it also provided me a different perspective of organizing, to the point where I want to learn more about organizing, because there's a difference between being an activist, advocating, and being an organizer.
Absolutely, an organizer, yeah.
And I think there has to be more education around that realm, because I think it's amazing for the activism aspect of it. And I feel like I've been more on that realm, but I want to go more into the organizing realm. And that book made me be like, I want to educate myself more.
Even more than organizing, you know, what I've heard it in our Buddhist meetings and stuff like that, one of the things what we've been studying and talking about is basically being in this age of soft power and really recognizing that these institutions and things are basically moving by force, whether that is military force, whether that is political force and various things. But there's wonderful tools of soft power, and that has to do with community engagement, education and information, community care, these type of things, that ways in which, that's why you see the police get violent when they're trying to actually criminalize community care, mutual aid. Various things like this. It's insane to see this, and we need to call it out because capitalism is not taking care of us. So we should not be criminalized when we're trying to take care of each other.
Exactly. One of my favorite accounts to follow is Parenting Decolonized, and she put a mutual aid post up. She was like, I just dropped off my child and the car wouldn't start after I left the school, so she had to drop her car off, and they said she needed a water pump. She was like, it cost a little under $1,000. I don't have it. Put up her stuff. We all donated. She was like, first of all, I wanted to post this response really quickly. Y'all have already covered that, and you've also covered my rent for the month. Thank you so much. I don't need anything else.
Oh my goodness.
But it wasn't it was just like, she provides us with free resources. She provides us with an eye into her world and advocacy and stuff like that.
I want to point that out. I want to point out what you're saying here about how easy it is for us to give to someone who we know is giving so much to community, or giving so much to you or to us, or you value whatever it is that they're putting out. When it comes to GoFundMe's and things like that, unfortunately, especially as a trans person, and then someone that has been identified as a celebrity, people think that my celebrity cashes at the bank the same way that Scarlett Johansson's does, or Zendaya's does, and it does not. It does not. We do not have that level of access to money, credits, different things, or whatever. And so, like, I can only take care of so much and do so much. And so I get a lot of GoFundMe links from people. Yeah. And many people who I don't know, not in community with, and then end up finding out they don't even really follow my work that I do. And one of the things that I wanted to point out to people, because sometimes people put together half of the story. Again, when we're talking about journalists or different things, and I'm sitting down and talking to different people, so many different times it'll be a situation where people summarize something, and so they don't get the whole essence of the story.
Yeah, because even certain stories were like, Miss Angelica Ross is leaving Hollywood, and I was like, what's happening? Like,
exactly, it's not the full story. So even when I went to Thailand and I got my surgery, I did a GoFundMe initially because I didn't have the money. I didn't know where the money was coming from. But the only reason I started a GoFundMe was because one of my sisters, Joanna Sifredo, another activist, was telling me, Angelica, I know who you are. I know that you want this, and I know that you've been avoiding it because you don't think it's possible. And she said, I want you to start believing that it's possible. Start calling the doctors, start looking at dates, put your GoFundMe up. She was like, and she said, there are people that want to give to you. And my GoFundMe was not successful in the sense that like I didn't raise all the money that I needed for my situation. But what I thought was really wonderful about it was there were people who wanted to give to me because they said, Angelica, you give. You've given so much to community. You've done this. You've given so much to me. I've learned so much from you, or this. Please, this would be a great way for me to feel like I've contributed to your life. And so I think I raised about 4 to 6, somewhere between $4,000 to $6,000 on GoFundMe. And I think even somewhere within that, another 5,000 or so was given back to me by my roommate, who I was renting a room out of her house for $1,000 a month. And so she kept it and held on to it and then gave it to me to donate back to my surgery fund. And she's a white trans Republican. And so living with her sometimes was work, just living there, because I had to deal. She was just not aware sometimes of some of the things, but she knew that her relationship and proximity to me was valuable in the sense that it was helping her to unpack certain things that she needed to unpack and do certain things. And what I appreciated about her was that she showed me in return in value and gratitude, saying, here you go, I want to give to you. So I think that a lot of, when it comes to community things, I think that we're talking about things where there are people who want to eat that are not willing to set the table. They're not even willing to watch the pot so it doesn't boil over. They're not willing to contribute in some kind of way, but just want to show up and be fed. And again, some of us, I wish our country was more like this, but some of us will feed you regardless of how you're coming to the table. And that's, I think, the spiritual way. I think that's the way that we should do things to take care of each other, because I think that what happens is when people are being fed, then out of a place of being fed can come awareness. It can come a place where when my needs are being met, all of a sudden I realize my needs are being met and somebody next to me needs more. So I think a lot of times what takes us out of even focusing on our own things is being able to realize that other people are in need too.
Yes, I very much appreciate that. Well, I can't think of anything better to end on. Miss Angelica Ross, tell everybody where they can find you everywhere, but tell them specifically.
Listen, you can find me at missross.com, missross.com. I'm at Angelica Ross on most of the platforms. But one thing I want you to check out is my Winner's Circle. I'm creating an online community at win.missross.com. And basically, it's all about helping folks to celebrate the small and the big wins, but understanding what winning really is about. It's not about these scoreboards of bank account balances and credit scores, but it's about a mindset and having a winner's mindset from moment to moment. So I really want people who see me as a winner, because I am a winner, baby. Those that see me as a winner, I want you to see that as a reflection, because I think that everybody can be a winner. Nobody has to be a loser. So check out, join the community at win.missross.com.
Absolutely. And also, Angelica Ross has a podcast, No Opportunity Wasted, aka
Absolutely.
Now Podcast. You could check her out there as well. Everyone, thanks again for tuning into the podcast. Mind Your Mental. We love having you here. Always remember to be kind to yourself. 2 steps forward and 1 step back is still 1 step forward. That is just math. And have a good rest of your day.